Everyone around you can name players, track scores, remember seasons like chapters of scripture, and somehow care, deeply care, about a game happening 3 states away. And you just don't. You can appreciate skill. You can enjoy the energy for 5 minutes, but the obsession never fully lands in your body. And if you've ever wondered whether that makes you cold, detached, boring, or missing some basic human chip, it doesn't. Because people who don't obsess over sports usually aren't lacking passion. They're filtering life through a completely different psychological lens. And that lens reveals something most people miss. Picture this. You're at a party, a family dinner, a bar, a group chat. The room lights up over a last-minute goal or a playoff upset. People are shouting, leaning forward, high-fiving like the outcome changed their blood pressure. You smile, maybe nod, maybe even pretend to care a little so you don't look weird. But inside, there's distance. Not judgment, just distance. You're watching the crowd watch the game, and somehow that becomes more interesting than the game itself. Then later, maybe on the drive home or lying in bed, you wonder why collective excitement can feel so foreign to you, why other people seem plugged into a current you only feel at the edges. Here's what's really happening. What looks like disinterest often isn't emptiness. It's selectivity. You tend to invest emotionally when something feels personally meaningful, symbolically rich, or deeply real to your inner world. And sports, for a lot of people, delivers identity, ritual, tribe, tension, and release, all in one package. But if your mind doesn't naturally assign deep meaning to that package, the emotional hook doesn't catch. So this isn't about you being above it or outside of humanity. It's about the kind of meaning your brain actually responds to. And once you see the 5 mechanisms underneath this, the whole thing starts to make sense. Number 1. You don't bond through borrowed identity as easily as other people do. A lot of sports obsession isn't just about the game, it's about belonging. It gives people a jersey-shaped shortcut into tribe, loyalty, and shared emotion. It's social glue with a scoreboard. But your mind may resist identities you didn't consciously choose. You're not disconnected. You're more internally sourced. If everyone is boarding the same emotional train, you're the one standing on the platform asking where it's going before you get on. And that can make group hype feel less like home and more like a flash mob of feelings. But that's only the first layer, and the next one gets stranger. Number 2. You may care more about the psychology around the event than the event itself. While other people are locked onto the screen, your attention drifts to the human theater around it. Who gets loud? Who gets territorial? Who suddenly becomes sentimental? Who needs their team to win because losing feels personal in a way they'd never admit? You're not uninterested. You're looking at a different level of the map. For you, sports can feel like the packaging, while the real story is hidden in the faces holding the package. It's like everyone else is watching the fireworks, and you're watching what the light reveals on people's skin. And that shift matters, because it points to something deeper in your wiring. Number 3. Your nervous system may not crave that kind of stimulation. Sports culture often runs on spikes, noise, suspense, tribal tension, dopamine bursts, sudden wins, sudden losses. It's emotional caffeine with a crowd around it. Some people feel energized by that rhythm, but you may process it as too loud, too repetitive, or too externally engineered. You're not dull, you're less reward hackable. If a stadium is 1,000 drums hitting at once, your system may prefer one clear note played honestly. You may get more from a deep conversation, a film that wrecks you quietly, a book that rearranges your thoughts, or music that says what you couldn't. And that's where people often misunderstand you, because your intensity exists. It just doesn't perform on command. Which leads to the fourth mechanism. Number 4. You often struggle to care on cue. Sports gives people scheduled emotion. This game matters now. This rivalry matters tonight. This season matters because everyone agrees it matters. But your mind may not respond well to mass-assigned significance. You're not apathetic. You're meaning-specific. If emotion is a key, you don't use the copies handed out at the door. You wait for the one that actually fits your lock. That's why you can seem detached in common moments and then become wildly animated over something other people barely notice. A piece of writing, a niche idea, a tiny injustice, a weird, beautiful detail no one else caught. And once you realize that, the last mechanism clicks into place. Number 5. You may be less interested in competition and more interested in consciousness. A lot of sports obsession channels energy into winning, ranking, dominance, legacy. None of that is inherently bad. But if your attention naturally moves toward complexity, symbolism, or inner truth, pure competition can start to feel thin after a while. You're not unpassionate. You're oriented toward depth over scoreboard. For some people, the game is the meal. For you, it can feel like seasoning without the dish. You're looking for something that opens a door inside you, not just something that raises your pulse for 3 hours. And here's the part people miss. That doesn't make you less alive. It may mean you're alive in quieter, harder to measure ways. Here's the beautiful contradiction. You can be hard to impress and still feel everything. You can look calm in a room full of screaming people and still have an inner world that is almost embarrassingly intense. You may not cry over a final score, but you might lose sleep over a sentence, a memory, a tone in someone's voice, a moment that felt slightly off and stayed under your skin for days. That's the paradox. You're not emotionally flat. You're emotionally precise. And precision often looks cold to people who only recognize volume. But there is a caution here. Sometimes not caring about sports isn't just preference. Sometimes it can become a larger habit of standing outside collective joy because vulnerability feels awkward. Sometimes it's easier to dismiss what the crowd loves than to risk joining in and feeling nothing, or worse, feeling something. So be honest with yourself. There's a difference between genuine disinterest and using detachment as armor. You don't need to force passion for things that don't move you. But you also don't want to become so committed to being the observer that you forget how to participate. Because not every shared ritual is fake. Some are just simple. And simple doesn't always mean shallow. Maybe that's the real point. You were never supposed to care about everything the world tells you to care about. You were supposed to notice what actually lights a signal fire in you. And if that fire doesn't look like stadium lights, that's fine. Not all devotion wears team colors. Some of it looks like curiosity. Some of it looks like solitude. Some of it looks like being the one person in the room who isn't hypnotized by the noise. So if you've never obsessed over sports, maybe the story isn't that something is missing in you. Maybe the story is that your heart refuses to perform for borrowed meaning.